Hey everybody, hi Essential Stencil fans. We are here live and I'm Sharon from I Restore Stuff, and yes, I have a funny accent, I'm from Australia. So it's actually morning here. It's, what are we, Wednesday morning? Thursday morning, actually, Thursday morning, and you're on Wednesday night in the USA. Welcome to our live. We're going to be doing some industrial stenciling on these stools right here. But before we do, I just want to check that the live's all good because I wanted to share it on my page. So if you've got a page or you've got some friends you want to share it with, why don't you grab your phone, hit the share button and do that now. I've got my trusty helper here, Celia. She'll be kind of letting me know if you've got any questions as we go in our live today. Just scrolling. You've got to kind of scroll to see. Okay, now I'm going to hit the share button, share it to my page. I'm from I Restore Stuff, so I'm just going to post that now so that all my followers can see that. And I hit it to my personal page as well. Hey, what about that? So my friends can see it too. Share now. Go ahead. So everyone's watching. Just pop that away. Welcome. So we've got some exciting prizes. Today we're going to be using the Essential Stencil number stencils, and we've got 1 to 0, 1 to 10 basically, that you can make, well, you can make more numbers than that. So just let us know while we're watching where you're tuning in from, because we've got people being added as we go. I'm just going to see if we can read the comments. Can you see comments coming up at all yet, Celia?
Yep, we've got Indiana and Michigan and Iowa.
Yay. Anyone from Australia, I want you to be waving your little Aussie flag there, people. Aussie. So we're going to be using just the numbers 1 and 2 today. You can do so much with these number stencils, but I wanted to create like an industrial kind of farmhouse look on these stools. Now just use your imagination as to what they would have been. It was this golden pine kind of look. So I've painted those using Fusion mineral paint in the colour Coal Black, which is a furniture paint fusion. And so they're all ready to go on the base, but the tops, they were a golden pine too, lovely, and we've sanded and stripped them right back to raw wood, so we've got a nice smooth finish on that. I usually like to use like a 400 grade right at the end just to get a nice smooth finish. So we're going to be popping our stencils here and here on our. Now, there's a couple of ways you could do this too. You could either centre them or just put them off to a side to make it almost look like it's an offcut from an old, shipping crate or some kind of tea chest or something like that. So you could kind of randomly put your stencils somewhere. So your placement is totally up to you. I think I'm just going to go with central for today. Centered today. But what I want to do first is just show you how, I know everybody has different stenciling techniques and you guys have the most amazing lives on the Essential Stencil page. I've been watching a few of those and everyone's got different techniques. So do whatever that you feel is best for you. I'll just show you some of mine. So my first tip for the day is if you don't have a normal stencil brush, with the shorter bristles, what I like to do is I'll just use my paintbrush. This is my furniture painting brush. It's a Klingon and it's an oval shape. You can use ovals or a round one just to get the bristles a little bit tighter. I'll either put a rubber band around them or some painter's tape. So just watch how we do this just to make it a little bit tighter. You might have seen that trick already, but if you haven't, there's a tip for you today. So that just makes our bristles a little bit shorter and makes them easier to stencil, depending on the method you like to use. And some people like to use sponges and that kind of thing. So today, we will be doing our stencil in Coal Black, but is there a question?
There is a comment that the video is not working very well.
Oh, is it glitchy kind of thing? Let me see.
The video's glitchy. Thanks
sorry,
guys for telling us.
That's to do with our broadband upload, bandwidth or something like that. So hopefully you can still hear the audio and that you can still catch what we're doing. I'll try and go a bit slower in slow motion. How about that? What I'm going to do is I've dipped the tips of my bristles into the paint. Only the tips. You don't need a lot. In fact, I've just dipped it in the lid. We've got Fusion mineral paint here that we're using. And I'm just brushing off to get a really dry brush. Now, as you can see, there's hardly anything on the brush. But what I like to do is, if you need to practice your stencil first before you're putting it on the real thing, just use a bit of brown paper or something like that. And we're just going to do, I like to do a little swirling method. Some people like to do stippling method, which is like this. But if I've got a really dry brush and I swirl, I find that I can get a nicer, neater edge on the stencil. And we'll go over this technique again in just a minute. So it's starting to get a little bit less on the brush now, so I'm just going to add a touch more, and I'm going to, again, dry my brush, wipe it off. Let me know if there's any questions that you have as we go, and I'll do my best to answer them. The lovely people from Essential Stencil are also here, and they'll be popping in the comments all the things you need to know for where you can get your stencils, links, and all of that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned before, we are giving away 3 of these number stencil sets at the end of our live, so stay tuned for that. Okay, so as you can see, just swirling around really gently, but I say less is more, because you can always add more on, but you can't take it off once it's on there and starts to bleed through underneath the stencil. So we should have a nice neat finish, as you can see there on that number 2. So we'll just finish off these little words here so you can see. And there we go. It's nice and neat. We do have a little bit of variation in the tones. You can go over that maybe with a second coat later if you wanted to. But since I'm doing this kind of industrial look, farmhouse look, you want a distressed, you know, or it doesn't matter if you see a lighter shade here and a darker shade there. Did you have another question? Was it all good?
Do we have bleeding when you swirl?
I don't, only because, so the very key to having no bleeding underneath is, if you can see that really close, there's no bleeding whatsoever there, because I've got a very dry brush. Look, I'm trying to dry that off, I'm trying to brush it off, and I'm not getting very much at all on the paper. So the key is a really dry brush. I've dried it off on there.
And another question about the rubber band that you put on the top of your brush. What is it and why is it there again?
So the rubber band is there just to, if you just don't have an actual stencil brush, I've just given you a really handy tip to add a rubber band or a piece of painter's tape. So I'll show you, you can do the same thing with painter's tape. It's just tape around the tops of the bristles. It just shortens them. So if you look at this brush here, as I use it, it's very flexible when I'm doing that swirly method, or if I'm stippling, you've got really long bristles. So to shorten those, I just simply do this. But again, everyone's got little different tricks and different tips that they like to try. So I'm just shortening those bristles, just like that, with a bit of painter's tape. And it gives it a little bit less of flexibility when it goes to swirling. Got that?
And then, do you need to clean your stencil between use, like when you're using it for the 2 things straight away?
Right. So I bet we have a whole lot of people who clean their stencils really well. As you can see, my ones here have been used, and I hope that we don't have any stencil cleaning police here, because I'm not really good at cleaning my stencils. But if you have a top tip for cleaning your stencils, I know some people use baby wipes and things like that, but please pop your stencil cleaning tips in the comments, because I'll be reading them after and finding your best tips for doing that. Soaking them in water, however you like to do that. I'd love to know. But otherwise, this one will probably look like this for a while, because the paint dries so quickly. That's dry already. And anyway, yep.
The paint's already dry, ready to use your stencil already again.
Sorry? The paint's already dried right there to use it again. And what I'm going to show you now, before we actually stencil our stools over here, if you've just joined us, we're going to be doing an industrial stencil kind of look on these stools that I have refinished, painted in black, and we're doing the tops in the stencils. But I wanted to show you a shadowing technique. So you can actually create a bit of a shadow if you've not done this before. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to show you. I probably won't do the shadow on the actual stool stencils, because I feel like the industrial look lends more to just a straight stencil look like that, rather than having a shadow. But just thought it'd be a fun thing to show. Yep. I'm using Fusion Mineral Paint, and for the black stencil part, I've just done coal black. For our industrial stools, we'll be using the black. But I'm going to add some raw silk now. I'm just using a different brush. So I've got my other brush here and the paint. I should really sort of put that in a plastic bag in between, but it should be okay. We're just going to leave it there for now. What I want to do is show you how to create a shadow. So I'm going to make raw silk the white colour, the top colour, and the black is going to be the shadow cast behind the number 2, if that makes sense. Give us a wave and tell us where you're from if you haven't done that already. I'd love to see where people are tuning in from if you've
Louisiana,
just joined.
Oregon,
Louisiana. We
Texas,
lived in Louisiana for a little while. I did.
Kentucky,
fun.
Hobart.
Hobart, that's in Tassie. Aussie, Aussie, Aussie. An Australian. Wave your little flag.
Delaware. Lots and lots of places.
That's awesome. All right, so with my shadowing, so I've got my black stencil there. I want to create a white top to this, so I'm just going to move my stencil up and across. Did you see that move? My handy husband is the camera guy and he's got his thumbs up. Yes, he saw that move, he got the close-up. So I've just moved it up and across as if the light is coming from this direction and it's going to cast this black shadow, if that makes sense. All will be revealed in just a moment. So as I said before, dip your paintbrush, dry it off, and then I'm going to be going over my stencil again, but I've shifted it, remember, slightly to the left. Now with the white going over black, it is going to probably need a couple of coats because you've got to cover that black shadow sort of all of the way. We've lost a bit of light there.
That's all right, you're still very clear.
That's good.
People are really loving your idea of shadowing.
Yeah, that's good. I hope it works out. Great. I do this a fair bit on some of my sign stencils, so I make some signs and things like that. So I'll do it on the words here, but I think it should mainly... I'm a bit worried now that I've put a little bit too much on my brush. I hope it doesn't bleed through. And because I'm doing it on paper, it's kind of... I feel like it's soaking into the paper and wrinkling it up a bit. Do you want to have a peek? There we go. So you can see the black through here, but obviously you would make that probably 2 coats of that white colour. You could sort of put it down again and do another coat, but just for the purpose of this, I just wanted to give you an idea of how that really makes it pop. It almost becomes like a 3D kind of looking stencil. So let me know what you think about that. Throw some little hearts in the air, hit the heart button, hit the like button if you like that idea, and give us some ideas what you want to do that on. So before I do my numbers on the stools here, I just want to show you some other things I did with the Essential Stencil numbers. Here's another idea. I just had these offcuts of wood and I've just painted them with a bit of milk paint, and I've done the stencils on 1, 2, 3, 4, right up through to 9 and 0. And I thought they would make great little photo props, you know, for a baby 1 month, put it next to the baby, 2 months old or 2 years old, you know, that kind of thing, or for school years, that kind of thing. So great little photo prop idea that you can do. All right, let's get on to stenciling.
And one question, could you do the white first and the black over the top?
Yes, you definitely could. In fact, I was thinking of doing it that way because then the black would stand out more over the top. It would cover the white more if you did do it that way. But again, I would have gone over that in 2 coats, but just since it's my practice paper, I'm not going to do that. Oh, I was looking for my number 1, and here it is. Don't forget to stay tuned right to the end because we've got prizes giving away. The Essential Stencil number sets to 3 lucky people at random, chosen by Celia. The pressure is on you, my friend. Okay, so picking up my black stencil brush again. Maybe I'll just bring this along here just slightly so we can do this. All right, I nearly forgot to use the painter's tape. Does everybody use painter's tape for their stenciling, or are you just really clever at holding your stencil still and not moving it anywhere? I'm going to shape this, line it up sort of along the grain. You can see the grain of the wood's going that way. Now, if you were really particular, you could get your ruler out and measure. Do I have any measuring tape people there who would actually get the ruler out, measure it out. I'm just going to eyeball it. Do we have people saying whether they're going to eyeball it or just measuring tape? Right, there's a little delay. Okay, so I'm just going to use my lid again that I've got from my black, coal black. I'm using Fusion's coal black, which is the same colour that we used on the base of the stools to use the top of the stools. So once you're happy with your practice, dry off your brush a bit. So I've got hardly any on the brush there. Remember, less is more. You can always add more on later. Now, I'm going to do something else here because I think I'll put another little bit of painter's tape. I'm a little bit worried that my brush is going to come out over the edge of that one. So if you have any pieces that you're worried that it's going to come across when you're stenciling, put a piece of painter's tape so that if my brush swirls and it hits over the edge, I'm not going to get a black line right there on my number one. So I could have just put my tape there in the beginning. There we go. Okay, I've got paint on my brush, a little bit on the end. I've dried it right off. Let's go with the words one. Now remember, I'm doing this just on raw timber, so I haven't got anything else, and I'll show you at the end what I'm going to do on top of this. Okay, dipping in paintbrush in the paint again. Fusion's coal black. It's a gorgeous true black, and you can just go up and down like this, and I've got hardly any on my brush. Can you see that? Going for that industrial look. It doesn't matter if we've got little bits of less paint on areas than others. I probably would like a little bit more than what I've got there, so I'm just going to dip again and then brush it off. I'm really liking that 3D look with the shadowing. Are people liking that? That's great. Hope you try it on something soon.
People love the shadowing, love the painter's tape. Some people eyeball, some people have husbands who like to measure. But they're all loving what you're doing. Yeah,
my husband's thumbs up right there.
My husband is measuring too. And the husband got a thumbs up from a lady too. Good job.
Go. Good job, cameraman. All right, so there we go. I can see little bits where I haven't covered as much, but I'm happy with the way that's looking. And hopefully I've got no bleeding under there because my brush was very dry. Everybody, dry brush is the key. There we go, no bleeding. That's really nice and sharp lines. So I'm just going to use this same tape that I've used here for my number 2 stencil. I feel like they've put these seats on slightly wonky, so the grain is just slightly off. But anyway, what do? Do you line it up with the stool or do you line it up with the grain? Now I'm in a dilemma, people, for all those control freaks out there. OCD, because the grain goes like this. What do you do? What do you do? Live, here on Essential Stencil. And I'm in a dilemma. It's just going to be like that, guys. It's going to go against the grain slightly. Okay, I'm putting my tape down the bottom, especially where this 2 comes down low at the bottom of the stencil. The thing I am really loving about Essential Stencil is the quality of the mylar. It's nice and thick, and in fact, it makes them easier to clean, which I did mention before. If there's any stencil cleaning police here, I don't clean my stencils very well. As you can see, we've got some... Oh, well, that's from where I was just doing it here on the practice, of course.
We had 2 votes for line it up with the stool and 1 for line it up with the grain.
Oh, yes, so I've lined it up with the stool, didn't I? Yeah, because the grain's slightly off. You know, well, here it goes, and hopefully no one's really going to tell. All right, so we've got the close-up in your face there. There we go. I'm just swirling. So some people like to tap it. I've got a really dry brush, so I'm just going to swirl into the grooves, and I'm not getting any bleeding underneath because my brush is really dry. And it's going nicely onto the raw pine as well. Okay, and here we go with the number 2. I feel like I've got, sometimes you have a lot more on your brush at the beginning of your start, at the start, than you do, obviously, as it swirls off down towards here. We're sort of running out, so just add a bit more on. How are they going there? It's hard not seeing the comments, having that person do it for me, because I can't kind of see what you're...
People are very positive. They love it. They're all blown away by the shadowing. That is the number one thing.
Wow, that's awesome.
And some people are like, I swirl too. They love the fact that it doesn't bleed.
Yeah.
How big are the numbers?
Oh, Essential Stencil, are you there? You can help me with that one. So I'll get them to answer that question of how big they are. I mean, you can see my hand, it's like a hand width. But the actual size is probably on the, is it on there? 6 inches by 6
square.
inches. So that probably is the size of the actual mylar square.
For Australians,
I think.
or non-Americans, that's 15 centimetres square.
Thank you, Celia. You're a mathematician too. Mm-hmm. So get out your calculators, people, or Google it for our Aussie people. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. We've got a little bit of variation in the colour there. So let's do the reveal. Whoops. Nice and sharp, because we've got a dry brush. Dry brush is the key. There's our number 2. So the number 1's dried fairly well. Now you will feel the stencil. I mean, you're feeling the paint just raised slightly. So what I'm going to do is just use the 400 grit sandpaper. These are my handy sandy hands sanding gloves that I love to use, the tradies version. Just on the grits, actually are Velcro grits, so they grip onto the glove. And I'm just going to really gently, and you may get some distressing to the number, but all I'm looking for is a nice sort of smooth finish. Possibly I would like a little bit of distressing, just to give it that sort of industrial feel a bit more. There we go. And number 2 has dried so quickly, I'm just going to do it there again. Now for the top of our stencils, to go over the top of them, I want to stain this wood. So I'm going to be using some of Fusion's all-in-one stain and finishing oil. Again, I'm just kind of creating, it's just a 400 grit sandpaper, and I'm just creating a nice smooth finish for that. There we go.
They love
Good.
the glove.
Yeah, lots of people, they all love the glove.
The glove is awesome. You need the glove.
Excuse me. Yeah, you can get that here in Australia, but unfortunately they haven't been able to sell them over in the USA and Canada at the moment. They're in Europe though. If you're from Europe, you can get them there. All right, so I've finished with the paint because I'm not going to do the shadowing on these particular stencils, but I did want to show you how to do that for other stencils that you might be using, only because I feel like with the look of these, I wanted that industrial feel, and you don't really see a lot of that shadowing on that kind of thing. So that's the reason I'm just going to leave them as is there. But what I do want to do is add some stain. So here's my stain, all-in-one finishing oil. I'm just going to pop these brushes in the water straight away. I am finished with them, right? I can always dip them back out. So we've got Fusion's stain and finishing oil. Now the cappuccino is a chocolate brown. It is quite dark. So instead of doing a really dark brown on these, I am going to mix the cappuccino with some of the natural, hoping I've got enough in my little mixture here that I've done a half strength. I crossed it out and wrote with a Sharpie because I liked the tone of it being half strength. Thank you. It just not waters it down because you're actually mixing it. It's an oil-based finish. So I've mixed these two colours together, the natural, which is clear, and the cappuccino, which is quite a dark chocolatey brown. Always using a glove. I've got a sample there for me that I can show them. Yeah, that's the cappuccino, and if I put that on a raw pine, this is 1 coat and that's 2 coats. It actually is quite dark, and I think it just could be a bit too dark for what I want to do with this. So I've done a half strength in order to, and I've just got a lint-free cloth. I'm going to apply it with that. I don't have very much in here, but I'm hoping it will cover my entire stools. Let's start with number 1 since we started with that before. There we go. Yeah, I like that colour a bit better. So I'm just going to go around the edges first. And at the same time, that's going to create a nice stain, but it will also seal in your stencil work on the top. Fusion Mineral Paint's got a built-in top coat. It's not a, it's a bit different than some of the porous chalky type paints. But this is really easy to apply with just a lint-free cloth. Oops, I'm going to just go across the top here. Nice even strokes, and I'm going along with the grain when you're staining wood. Good idea to go with the grain. Yeah, not too dark compared to that other sample board I showed you before. Are there any more questions there?
Everybody's in awe of the colour.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
And the picture's got really clear.
That's awesome. Yay, yay for us. I hope you're picking out some winners there, Celia, for our live.
They all seem to have the first name Celia. I'm not sure why.
I don't think that you're eligible to win this prize, just saying.
No. I'll be as mad as a frog in a sock.
All right. Isn't that looking gorgeous? I just love that. You can see the joins in the wood and the different tones. So it is a stain. It's an all-in-one stain and finishing oil. So you've got the colour there and the sealer. So that's looking gorgeous. I'm really happy with that colour. I'm glad I picked that because I think that that would have been just really too dark to go with that black. So that's one. What an easy makeover. You can see the difference right there in the 2 colours. And I do have enough. This actually goes such a long way. I was a little bit worried at first when I'm putting it, you're just putting it on a cloth, lint-free cloth. If you've just joined me, my name's Sharon and I'm from I Restore Stuff, and I love to take old pieces of furniture and make them new again with a bit of paint, refurbishing. And I'm from Brisbane, Australia. Well, south of Brisbane actually, in Heritage Park in Logan, city of Logan. We have some more questions, just let me know.
Can you explain what stain you're using again?
Yeah, it's
what it's like?
It's by Homestead House or Fusion Mineral Paint, and it's an all-in-one stain and finishing oil. So it stains at the same time. Obviously the natural is clear, so that's not actually a stain, it's just the natural finishing oil. I actually don't mind the smell of it. It's not really potent like chemical or anything. It's actually quite nice. Kind of has a bit of a, sort of similar to Scandinavian oil or one of those Danish oils or something.
And is it oil-based?
Yeah, it's an oil-based one. So the cleanup for this would be, we call these different things in different countries. Mineral terps is what we call it over here. It might be mineral spirits.
Mineral spirits, methylated spirits?
I think mineral spirits is different than methylated spirits.
Turpentine or, mineral spirits.
I think it's white spirits even. I don't know. What do you guys use for oil-based? Put it in the comments there. What do you call it for your oil-based paints? What would you remove that with, or clean up? What's your clean up method? Pop it in the comments because I forget. We all use different things all over the world, different terminology for different things. So now I'll go over that in a minute and just make sure I've got everything.
Are the stools new and people are loving the stain on the paint?
Yeah, so the stain, just you can see the black right through that, and I think also if we had have done the full strength cappuccino, it would have been a less of a contrast with the numbers coming across them. No, these were not new stools. They were just picked up from either a garage sale or something like that. They were that golden pine kind of colour from the 90s, and so with the base, all I had to do was scuff sand that. Actually, Celia did a great job on these for me, scuff sanding the bases with the varnish. You didn't have to strip it back to raw wood. Then we painted it with coal black, Fusion Mineral Paints coal black. But the tops we did sand right back to raw because we wanted to stain them. When you're doing a stain, it's best to do that on raw timber, not on your existing varnish. Yep.
And the next questions are, why not stain first, and can you paint over the stain?
Yes, so you could paint over the stain. You would have to wait, I would wait for the stain to actually dry, maybe 7 days or even curing time, the longer you leave it maybe, but I feel pretty confident that you could just paint over it within a couple of days, but it's just so that stain's set. But yeah, you could paint over the stain, definitely. So there's our finished makeover with the industrial stools. I hope you like that. I wanted to also give you a sneak peek on our next week. I'm coming back, so if you love me, I'll come back. No, if you love this live, I'll be back next week. We're going to be doing something else with this autumn. I don't know if you've seen the new release stencils that Essential Stencil has for their fall. We don't call it fall here, we call it autumn. So I thought, I'm going to get the autumn one. So I did. And it's a great front porch thing. And in fact, it's not even autumn. So this is going to be for next year because we've just ended spring. It's spring here in Australia. So I'm doing an autumn thing in spring. It feels a little bit back to front. We're in the upside down here, down under, you know. Anyway, what I'm going to be doing next week is adding these leaves, but I wanted to show you how to do that with an embossed, raised effect. So that's going to be next week. Before we go, we do have to see if there's any more questions. And Celia, just wanted to make sure I've got everything on my list. Yes, just tell us, have you picked out 3 winners yet?
I have. I've picked out 3. Do you want me to read the names?
Dun, 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 dun. And the winners are they're winning the Essential Stencil 10-pack of numbers, which you can do all sorts of creative things with. Yes?
Denisa Hughes.
Denisa Hughes, you're a winner.
Sue Hope.
Sue Hope, you're a winner.
And Peggy Easier Short.
Peggy Easier Short. You're a winner, you're all winners. I feel like Oprah. Oh my goodness, that's so exciting. So I hope you liked this stencil stool makeover. Show us some pictures of stencil makeovers that you've done. Show us on the page in the comments. Share this live with your friends if you liked what you saw today. And I will be back next week. And Celia, I might need you to go and turn off the live for Marty, who's giving us the woohoo. But thank you so much, guys. If there's any more questions, please just post them in the comments underneath. I will be able to help you. Essential Stencil can help you. And we'll catch you next week. Bye.